The great British surgeon John Simon, a doctor here in England during the 19th century and the chief medical officer of the General Board of Health in London, once made the famous comment, "It is so easy to be bold against an absent danger, to despise the antidote, while one had no painful experience of that distress." What did he mean by this, and what did this have to do with humans after vaccinations developing cow-like features and behaviors similar to that of cow? Hi, if this is your first time on this channel, my name is Dr. Aziz and I'm a physician based in England. I work in emergency medicine, family medicine and in research, but also with a background in psychology from my first degree at Cambridge. In this video, we'll be going back to where any story starts, the beginning, the story of when and how vaccines started, and indeed the first opposition to vaccines, which happened more or less immediately. As we do on this channel, we'll also explore the psychology of why some people oppose the smallpox vaccine and explain how some of these issues are still present today. If you're enjoying some of the content on this channel, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button and hit the notifications bell. So what is or was smallpox? Smallpox was a savage infectious viral infection, often called the speckled monster because of its distinctive blister-like rashes caused by the variola virus. It had killed millions upon millions of people since the medieval times. At one point was the single biggest cause of death in Europe, killing nearly 500,000 people every single year. In the Americas, tribes were ravaged and entire cultures collapsed due to smallpox. The disease did not discriminate and killed anyone from peasants to kings. Entire wars over centuries were decided based on which side smallpox struck, and some cultures even had deities or gods due to the carnage and millions upon millions of deaths that smallpox could and frequently would cause. 1 in 3 people who caught smallpox would die. 1 in 3 who survived were blinded, and almost all survivors were scarred for life, right until the last known natural case in 1977. In the 20th century alone, an estimated 300 million people were killed by smallpox. That's more than all the wars, including the 2 world wars and nuclear bombings put together. So what happened to smallpox and why don't we hear of it anymore? The story goes back to 1796 to the discovery, development and invention of the first vaccine by Edward Jenner, a doctor based here in England. It was noticed by some that those people who had been infected by cowpox generally only experienced only mild symptoms, but then subsequently developed immunity to the more devastating smallpox. We know now this happens because on a molecular level the cowpox virus looks very similar to smallpox to the human immune system, thereby putting the immune system on standby for any future threats. I.e., if you get infected with mild cowpox, you are then immune to the more deadly smallpox. If you haven't watched How Immune System and Vaccines Work video, I'd strongly recommend you do so, and I'll post a link below. Anyway, Jenner put the anecdotal findings to trial scientifically in 1796 by famously inoculating 9-year-old James Phipps, and subsequently confirmed that the little boy had in fact developed immunity to smallpox. After several years of experiments, Jenner published his famous work in 1801 on the origin of the vaccine inoculation, and expressed his hope that the annihilation of the smallpox, the most dreadful scourge of the human species, must be the final result of this practice. Within 5 years, vaccination was being used across Europe, and within 10, it was global. Vaccination became widely accepted by doctors, scientists, and healthcare institutes, and the number of deaths from smallpox began dropping significantly. Fast forward to 1959, and the World Health Organization began an ambitious plan of ridding the world completely of smallpox and initiated mass vaccination campaigns across the globe. By 1977, human civilization had, by utilizing vaccination, eradicated smallpox from the human race, and in 1980 the World Health Assembly officially declared the world free from the disease. There has not been a single case since. In the view of many historians, smallpox eradication is considered by many to be the biggest achievement in international public health history. So why is smallpox still a danger today, and why did it take over 2 centuries for it to be eradicated? The issue of contention and danger, both past and present, was not the science or the evidence, but rather the mindset and accompanying anxiety. Not too different to today, in all honesty, because although we wiped out this horrible disease completely, the opposition to the vaccine was huge. The anti-vax movement started almost at the same time as vaccines were introduced and continue to this day, despite the billions of lives being saved. This was particularly pronounced when vaccines were mandated at various points in time, and from the perspective of the lower classes and the poor, but opposition often came from a place of genuine concern and was understandable. In psychology, this is called the boomerang effect, or the theory of psychological resistance, which refers to the unintended consequences of an attempt to persuade, resulting in the adoption of an opposing position instead. It states that attempts to restrict a person's freedom often produces an anti-conformity boomerang effect, i.e. they end up doing the opposite. We also see in action the concept of moral panic, a term in social psychology which is defined as a widespread feeling of fear, often irrational, that some evil person or entity threatens the values, societies, or well-being of a community or society. Vaccines were seen by many as a threat to civil liberties, that they were impure and would go against nature or God. We see the appeal to nature logical fallacy here, which basically says something is good because it's perceived as natural or bad because it's perceived as unnatural. But this is an error in thinking and not in keeping with science and medicine. Some things can at face value seem not natural, but they do work. For example, administering high voltage electric shocks or injecting someone with synthetically manufactured adrenaline in a cardiac arrest situation. Doctors and health authorities were portrayed by some as being untrustworthy, with various pamphlets produced and distributed causing fear and anxiety, and at times poor uptake of the vaccination, with subsequent increase in smallpox outbreak and deaths. Many of this vocal opposition had their own interests and businesses in alternate medicine that they wanted to safeguard. A minority of doctors even opposed the smallpox vaccine. There was a comment by Benjamin Moseley where he said, "Can anyone say what may be the consequences of the smallpox vaccine after a long lapse of years?" This is not too different regarding some of the concerns being voiced about the COVID vaccines. Just like today, wild and seemingly outrageous theories were also proposed about vaccines by a vocal minority. These included suggestions that vaccinated children were developing cow-like behaviors or even morphing into cows themselves. We may laugh at this now, but really, are they that much different or less amusing to present-day rumors of vaccines, 5G technology, and microchips? Anyway, in the late 19th century, tens of thousands of people to the streets campaigning against compulsory vaccinations. The campaigning was particularly vociferous in Leicester, here in the UK. Ironically, the iconic picture of the two brothers, one vaccinated and one not vaccinated against smallpox, was taken in Leicester in 1901. The boy on the right, who was vaccinated, reportedly did actually contract smallpox but experienced only mild symptoms. A strawman argument often used is, well, vaccines don't always stop the spread of infections, so why take them? Because they help prevent serious illness, lifelong scarring, and death. By the way, in psychology, a strawman argument is a fallacy, i.e. an error in thinking or logic where the real subject of the argument is not addressed, but instead replaced with a false one. Regardless, at various points over the next 2 centuries, the governments of various countries relented and gave in to the campaigning, particularly here in England and over in Brazil. This resulted in outbreaks of smallpox and thousands of deaths and suffering that could have been prevented. Ultimately, science, medicine, and common sense prevailed, and in the late 20th century, smallpox as a disease was eradicated. Dr. Edward Jenner's hope in the late 1700s of eradicating smallpox finally came to fruition, but not until much stalling, opposition, and sadly the deaths of millions. So what can we learn from all of this? We don't hear much of smallpox these days because vaccines wipe this savage disease out. In psychology, this is called the compassion fade, which states the level of compassion decreases with an increased number of unidentifiable people suffering from an ailment. We also see here the availability heuristic or recency bias, both of which basically say we give more importance to things which are recent or more salient in our memories. Because smallpox is now essentially confined to the history books, intervention and role of vaccines is not apparent or known to many. Nonetheless, there are still valuable lessons we can take from the story of smallpox, its vaccine, and the hesitancy against it. Coming back to the comment at the start of this video by the British surgeon John Simon, his full comments were as follows: "It is so easy to be bold against an absent danger, to despise the antidote while one had no painful experience of that distress. The very success of vaccination may have blinded people to its importance. It is so easy to be bold against an absent danger." Regarding people turning into cows, developing cow-like features, he went on further to say, "It is wearisome to read stuff so stupid or so dishonest." And believe me, that sentiment is felt even today by doctors, scientists, and quite frankly, the vast majority of people. Remember, 92% of the world's population agree with vaccines and how important they are to safety. But it is also important that we do not castigate or rebuke or alienate those who are hesitant, those who are concerned and anxious, but rather address why they are feeling that way. provide good education, and help find a way forward. Ultimately, as with anything else in life, everyone can show you the door, only you can walk through it. What are your thoughts on any of this? Leave your comments down below. Hit the like and subscribe button if you want to be kept up to date or finding any of this information useful. Until next time, stay safe.